Hello, everyone. It's Brian here with part 3 of, what did I call it? Random records selected by you from my collection or something like that. As with last time, I'll leave a link to the video in which I proposed this kind of crazy idea where you could choose a bin or cube number and then a record number, and I would take those out and then make videos on them. I did 6 in the first 2 videos each. I'm going to do 6 today, but I have to do a bonus one, which I'll explain in a moment. If you want to propose a record number, that is totally fine. You can leave a comment either here or on the first video, and I'll add you to the list. I'm up to, I think, 49 records that have been chosen. So that is pretty cool, I have to say. And it's an interesting way to get into the collection, things I haven't thought about in a while. So first I have to correct a mistake I made. So Greg from 3 Dimensions of Music realized that the record he chose couldn't possibly be correct because I said I had 52 bins and he chose 48. And the record I chose for him was Supertramp, which I agree is not correct. And that's because I was standing there, I counted to the right number of bin, and then I came back to my computer to remember that he had chosen record number 4 in that bin. Then when I went back, I stood in the wrong place and pulled the wrong record out. So I pulled Supertramp's Brother, Where You Bound, which is incorrect. So strike that from your memory. I did not show you that record. So the record he really did choose is a record I know far less about. That's from UK punk band Vice Squad. Yeah, so I bought this record, I don't know when I got it. This came out in 1998. I think there was a release in 97. This is from Italy, of all places. And I played it a few times and kind of forgot about it, but I think I probably should go back and listen to it. It's this interesting punk band started in the late 70s, led by Becky Bondage. She left for a while, I think, and was replaced by someone else, and then they reformed later, maybe even in the 2000s, something like that. So what this is coverage of 4 BBC sessions. So 2 from 1981, 1 from 82, and 1 from 84. So there are actually 17 songs on here because they're all fairly short punk songs. I remember that reading at some point, maybe when I got it, that she was promoting vegetarianism, I think. Anyway, there's quite a lot of text here that I read at some point but haven't really read recently, and it just talks about the Peel sessions that occurred. So I feel like I haven't given this record enough attention. So maybe I will listen to it. So I will show you the record itself. There it is, Vice Squad, and this would be Becky on this side. And again, so 17 fairly short songs. I mean, some of them are like under 2 minutes. A few are under 2 minutes. Several are under 2 minutes, and some are like 2 to 3 minutes. So yeah, interesting. 1998, Vice Squad from Italy. So Greg, that really is the record you chose, honestly. Let's get into the new one. So this is actually, I guess, record 13 if we adjust for the mistake I made. This suggestion came from French Vinyl Addict, who I have met numerous times in Toronto. And also I met him the first time in Boston at the first MGK party, which was cool. I've always enjoyed his channel. And he likes a lot of, I mean, it's just everywhere. So he likes, UK folk or British folk. He likes prog. Very interesting guy, very interested in music. He said, bin 3, record number 18, and you have picked one of my favorite guitarists. Well, actually, I'll say musician because he's more than just a guitarist. That is Adrian Belew. This is the Lone Rhino from 1982, which is, in my opinion, phenomenal. Now, I say he's one of my favorite musicians, largely because of the guitar, but he is a multi-instrumentalist, and he has played with numerous people, such as Talking Heads. He had his own band called The Bears. Laurie Anderson, he worked with her for a while. And of course, he's most famous possibly for being a member of King Crimson from the early 80s with those trilogy of 80s King Crimson records right up into The Power to Believe. I think that's the time he left. Or not left, they reformed without him. And here's the back of this record. Now, I owe my knowledge of Adrian Belew to a person I've mentioned a few times on this channel. That is a person named Pete, who lived in my residence, and he was the guy that, of all the people in my residence, he was the guy that exposed me to the most new music. He'd often come to my room and either have some cassettes or something to lend me, and I would listen to them. And one day he walked in with a copy of Adrian Belew's Lone Rhino and also Adrian's Twang Bar King, and I was immediately hooked by those 2 records. This one contains my favorite Adrian Belew track of all time called Big Electric Cat, which you probably won't be able to read. That is a fantastic track, and when I think about that, I think about the only time I was ever on the radio, and That's because CFNY in Toronto had an all-request nooner, so you could call in and request songs. So on my birthday one year, I chose this track. It was a toss-up between this and Brian Eno's Baby's on Fire. And I got to say like a line on the radio, like, it's my birthday, here's Adrian Blue's Big Electric Cat. Wow, eh? Too bad there's no recording of it. What else is on here? I mean, great songs are on here. We've got The Lone Rhinoceros. We have The Mommer. The Man in the Moon, that's a fantastic song. Swing Line, Adidas Neat, all really fantastic tracks, if you ask me. Such a talented person. He's such a great voice. Oh, I should have said one of the most famous people he worked with was Bowie. He toured with Bowie as his guitarist. Some drawings here. I don't know who did those. And then the lyrics on Island Records, upside down. You may see a bit of dust on these records. It always happens. So he plays on this record guitars, effects, drums, percussives, and lead vocals. He does have someone playing piano and some saxophone, another person on the bass. So really excellent record. I wonder if I could pull off a red suit like that. I'm not sure. So thank you, French Vinyl Addict. Next one, well, I guess it's 14 technically, is from Unicorn Power, who said, no channel, but Cube 40, the first yellow or orange spine. So I looked at Cube 40, and the first yellow spine I saw was this one, and you probably already saw what it was. It's the Smiths 12-inch single for Shakespeare's Sister with What She Said and Stretch Out and Wait from 1985. Awesome. I often say that the Smiths is my favorite band. It's a hard thing to choose your favorite band, but Smiths are right up there. Always had really interesting covers for their records and their singles. So this is fantastic. And I will tell you I guess this is not really a secret, something I've never mentioned before, but just after this, around 86, maybe 87, I was at a lawn sale and someone was selling a whole whack of Smiths 12-inch singles, including some Smiths records. So all those, the vast majority of those 12-inch singles from the Smiths that I have came from that person. I paid $1 each for them, which is probably the best deal on anything I have ever had. Here is the inner sleeve. This panel, which shows a number of the releases. Yeah, the only one I don't have on here is this 7-inch single for Hand and Glove, which I never had, because I don't really collect 7-inch singles, but everything else I own on 12-inch. So here's the record. So yeah, some dust. Shakespeare's Sister, 2 minutes and 9 seconds at 45 RPM. A lot of wax for a very short track, and more dust. Side 2 has What She Said is only 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and Stretch and Wait 2 minutes and 37 seconds. So that's very short songs for that, but very cool. Love that. Now next, so yes, thank you for that, Unicorn Power. I Dig Vinyl from Scotland. That's Gordon. I think we're all getting to know Gordon, a reasonably new channel. He has a contest now reaching towards 500 subscribers, I think. I'm really slow. I haven't done that entry yet. I'll see if I can get it done. In any case, you should check out Gordon's channel. I'll leave links to all these channels and people who suggested records. Superb idea. Put me down for bin 1, record 1. And my comment is, what took so long? It took this many records for someone to choose the first bin and the first record. Now, I file my records alphabetically by either artist name, surname that is, last name, or band name, removing things like the. So the only thing that's a little odd, and this falls into the ALA filing rules, is that if it's a number with actual digits, I put it first. If it's a number that's spelled out in letters, that goes in the alphabet. But if you look at my collection, the first bin will have albums from bands starting with numbers. For example, Canadian band 13 Engines is in there, 5440. Although they have a CD in which they spell out 5440, but I stick with their early tradition. 10,000 Maniacs, which I mentioned before. So the first numeral record in my collection is from 10cc. This is the original soundtrack. So this is the very first record in my collection. And to be honest, I haven't played this I cannot remember. This is from 1975. I don't know when I played it. I'm looking at these song titles and I cannot even remember what they sound like. Apart from I'm Not in Love, which was a massive hit, and I do really like that song. And the One Night in Paris suite that opens up side 1, I think I remember bits of it. But other than that, I'm kind of drawing a blank on what these sound like. And of course, if you don't know 10cc, you'll obviously know two of the members, Lol Creme or Cream, I don't know how you pronounce it, and Kevin Godley, of course, Godley and Cream or Godley and Creme, whatever, Eric Stewart and Graham Gouldman. So I'm not a person who's very knowledgeable about this band, sleeve designed by Hypnosis. So I'm drawing a blank on what these songs sound like, which maybe suggests that I should leave it out and give it a listen. Here is the label for that. When I think of 10cc, I think of Morten Astad because I think he has everything the band has ever released. I think. So anyway, not a soundtrack at all. Interesting concept for a record. I think I will play it so I can remind myself what it sounds like. So thank you, Gordon, for that. Anthony Gambler 812 is next. He said, Brian, there isn't that much of a choice here, so I guess I'll pick Bin 8, album 21. Now, album 12. Now, I've met Anthony in person in Boston. Fantastic guy. He's not making many videos recently. I think he's quite busy, but a very generous person, very friendly person. You should just even go back and watch his old videos. He's such a great guy. So Bin 8, album 12, and Anthony, you've picked one of my favorite Canadian musicians of all time. That is Bruce Cockburn, and this is the double LP compilation called Waiting for a Miracle, which compiles singles from 1970 to 1987. This came out in 1987. There is a CD version, which I have as well. I'm not sure when that came out, but it does have a few bonus tracks on it. Maybe 3 or more. Not sure. So there's 22 tracks in here. 20 are singles, and the last 2 are new songs that he recorded and placed on this record. I guess so it gave you a reason to buy it. The new songs are Stolen Land, which you may divine from the title is a reference to stolen or occupied indigenous lands around the world, I think primarily North and South America. And then Waiting for a Miracle, which was a favorite of Jerry Garcia from the Grateful Dead, who actually recorded it, and I think played it in concert. There's the gatefold, including the lyrics for the 2 new tracks and all the credits for the various songs going back to 1970, where this starts. So the first track on here is the first single he released from his first record, which is a very kind of mystical, folky track called "Going to the Country." That album is very very folky, very, very folky. And he is a folk singer, so there's folk all through his recordings, but at some points he rocks out a bit more. So One Day I Walk is also a very quiet, folky song. It's Going Down Slow, I would say, is the first obvious foray into politics. That's a very political song. It has electric guitar in it. So he kind of transitions back and forth. A live version of Mama Wants to Bear House All Night Long. I guess the tracks that people might know are Wondering Where the Lines Are, which was a hit here. I'm not sure anywhere else. Tokyo, Trouble with Normal. I mentioned Bruce Cockburn in the last video. And by the way, I should also mention that on social media, I kept seeing posts about Bruce Cockburn recently because it turns out his birthday is actually today. So happy birthday, Bruce Cockburn. If I Had a Rocket Launcher and Lovers in a Dangerous Time, I believe, were also well-known tracks from him. And it ends with the World of Wonders album, Call It Democracy and People See Through You. So I'd say a pretty strong collection of Bruce Cockburn tracks. Not everyone's going to like him, but I said before, I think he's Canada's best guitarist. I think he's underrated as a guitarist. He's a really interesting lyricist. In later years, he became much more political, which some people don't like, but I think, he had some really interesting and insightful things to say. So, and I think he's turning 80. Is that right? I think his birthday is I should have checked that before, but anyway. All right, so number 17 is from Grumpy Record Collector from Oslo. Hey, Brian, nice idea. 667. If you know that meme, you know it. So Crate 6, album 7. I hope it's a good one. I think it is a good one. This is a band that I didn't know when they first came onto the scene. I discovered them later, and I blame radio here. So this is Buzzcocks, a different kind of tension. Now, I'm not 100% sure if they were played on the radio. I don't remember it. Even on the sort of interesting progressive radio station I was listening to, I don't remember them. So it could be that I just have a bad memory, but I didn't discover this band until this record, which, if you look at this issue, it says it's 1980. This is a Canadian pressing, but I think it actually came out in 1979 in the UK. So I had to go backwards then and discover earlier Buzzcocks releases. And by the way, I didn't buy this in 1980. This would have been many years later. But I eventually did find out what this band was. You know, Howard Devoto had left by this point, so we have Pete Shelley doing a lot of the work here. So You Say You Don't Love Me was, I believe, a single. I said I believe. There's actually a track called I Believe. So yeah, somebody's going to know more about Buzzcocks than I do. And I went back and I do have the earlier releases, like original pressings of Singles Going Steady and all those things. But again, it's a band that I came to many, many years later. I'm not even sure when. Here are the lyrics. There's a little image there, and I will pull out the record so you can have a look at it. Right. Buzzcocks. So I really appreciate this band now. I wish I had known them earlier. So I don't really have a lot to say about this band because it's still a band I'm learning about, even though I know the singles and I know those songs. But yeah. Anyway, I think they're touring now. I don't know what the lineup is. Fascinating. So thank you, Grumpy Record Collector. That's a good one. Finally, we'll wrap it up with someone called Brian from the Institute of Pop. Really great channel. If you are interested in someone who kind of takes apart a record, gives you some sound bites, really delves into what it means, what this record's all about, I would recommend this channel. He did some really interesting ones on some Robert Fripp albums. Really, really great. So we have some similar tastes in music, but not baseball, because he said, love it. Bin 14, last Giants World Series. Who cares? Record 40 from Mad Bum's number. I mean, really, like, I think this should be a Blue Jays channel. So you shouldn't mention baseball unless you're going to mention the Blue Jays. But I will forgive that for the moment. And he chose, as I say, 1440. And that happens to be a very interesting release. Here's the back. I'm going to take it out of this decaying plastic sleeve. This happens to be a bootleg in this manila folder with this little insert here. This is it says Master LP. This is, the composer and author is The Fix from My Father's Places in Roslyn, New York, 1983. And you'll see that says The Fix. So it has The Fix, it mentions the name of the people and the instruments that they play, and then the track listing. So side 1 has Cameras in Paris, fantastic song. I Found You, Stand or Fall, one of their most well-known tracks. Side 2, Reach the Beach, Lost Plains, and Red Skies. Interesting track listing, only 6 tracks. Here is the outer sleeve. It's sealed on the sides, but it's in this sort of manila-like folder with this thing that pops up. I have another one of these for Psychedelic Furs. Now, I bought this at a record store that was very close to me in about 1993 or 1994. It was very close to a record store called the Wax Museum, which is a store I went to way too often. They had a Bloor Street location and a downtown location, and one in Florida. They eventually closed up, as did this, but I would go to both at the same time. And one day I found this record and thought, you know, I've never been thrilled with bootleg quality, but I will buy it. And the good news is that it actually sounds remarkably good. Not authentic, official live recordings, but actually pretty good. I have to say, I was a little surprised. Now, the record does have some dust, but it does have a few pops and clicks. But for what it is, it sounds pretty incredible. So there's weirdly these things that are Meet Me at the Show, and this one is Painting the Clouds with Sunshine, which I think is a reference to modern English. Maybe, I don't know what this one means. Maybe someone knows. Yeah, it's not in perfect shape, but the sound of it is, I think, well past acceptable. I think it's very, very good for what it is. So that made its way into my collection that day. And The Fix, of course, is a band I quite like. I don't have to really say anything about The Fix. I think they're well known, but kind of a curious artifact from that band, which I quite enjoy. In fact, I played that not so long ago, so it's really, really weird that one came up. So that's the next 6. Really 7, correcting for my error. The next video I do may well be 10 more tracks from my 200 favorite Canadian songs of all time, but we will see. Thanks for watching. And again, if you want to leave a recommendation for a Cuban record number, please do that. And I will see you in the next video.